I mean, what's more unnervingly realistic than being hunted for game? Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sam, and it is finally August, which means it's also almost the end of the summer season. So I bet a lot of you have last-minute vacation plans or camping trips. And while you're struggling with your plans, I'm here to give you one less worry. Today's video is all about short stories that you can tell around the campfire with your friends and families. So let's get right into it. And the first story we'll be talking about today is The Lottery. The Lottery is a chilling tale written by Shirley Jackson and published in an issue of The New Yorker in 1948. It's a dystopian story that takes place in a current but slightly alternate universe in a small town middle America and centers around this tradition they have called the lottery. The entire town gathers together and conducts a drawing of all the family names in the town. And once a family is picked, another drawing is conducted to pick one member of that family to win the lottery. At the end of the story, we receive a shocking and sickening twist when it's implied that the prize of the lottery is death by stoning. This short story is extremely controversial. The summer it came out, both Shirley Jackson and The New Yorker received a large amount of hate mail. People were canceling their subscriptions left and right, and the story was even banned in the Union of South Africa. I like this story because it's pretty dark and thought-provoking. Sociological studies have actually taken this story into consideration when talking about the idea of mob mentality. The point of the lottery is the one against the many and the abandonment of reason. As you begin reading, everything seems perfectly normal, but at the end of the story, you're giving context to what the lottery is. These seemingly nice people who are just congregating and talking about gardening and raising their children are literally lined up to murder one random person in the crowd, and they have no idea who that is. It literally could be the person next to them that they're talking about their sickly grandmother, and yet they are literally lined up for the possibility of murdering them. I think this makes the perfect campfire story because of the build of uneasiness you feel all up until that last paragraph, and then that sickening shock when you finally realize what's actually happening. The bigger picture here, the idea that people are willing to follow tradition even to the point of sacrificing a family member, is really what keeps you up at night. Another story that's pretty similar to the lottery that we have on this list is The Most Dangerous Game. Written by Richard Connell in 1924, The Most Dangerous Game is the story of Sanger Rainsford, an expert huntsman who's traveling to the rainforest to hunt jaguars. Rainsford falls off the yacht that he was sailing on and swims to the shore of this island that was known for shipwrecks. There, he meets a man named General Zaroff and his servant Ivan. They have dinner together and start recounting tales of their hunts, when Zaroff reveals something pretty unnerving. He says that hunting big game has become pretty boring for him, so he is actually hunting the people that have gotten washed on shore from their shipwrecks. In fact, he moved to that island specifically for that purpose, and it isn't long until Rainsford realizes that he is Zaroff's next hunt. And so the games begin. I enjoy the uniqueness of the story and how it's a horror and adventure story all rolled into one. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, but I also enjoy the fact that we get a real ending and closure at the end of this short story. While there is a bit of a cliffhanger, we get enough information to assume what has happened in the final moments between Rainsford and Zaroff. One of the things that cements this as a campfire story for me is the general level of uneasiness it has to it. For me, I don't believe that campfire stories are supposed to be bloody or gory. I believe they're supposed to be thrilling and suspenseful. Ghost stories. It wants to slither down your spine and creep you out, and I think The Most Dangerous Game does a perfect job of that. I mean, what's more unnervingly realistic than being hunted for game? In fact, this story was the inspiration for a game we might all know today called paintball. You heard me right. Paintball was invented in 1981 by a stock trader and a writer when they discussed the survival instincts of those born in an urban setting versus those raised in a rural setting. And this was all spawned by the discussion of The Most Dangerous Game. And last but not least, we have a story with a bit of a different type of history behind it. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow was written by Washington Irving and published in a collection of essays between 1819 and 1820. It is one of the oldest pieces of literature that still holds its stance in American pop culture. Sleepy Hollow was published with a companion story you may know as Rip Van Winkle. That's one of my favorite short stories, but personally I don't think it's very spooky, which is why I chose The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Both draw inspiration from the American Revolution, but while Rip Van Winkle is more mystical, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is downright ghostly. The story is set in 1790 and actually takes place in a real-life location. On the rural countryside of what is now historical Tarrytown, New York, there's a valley, and that valley was known as Sleepy Hollow. Irving writes that Sleepy Hollow was a hub for all kinds of supernatural occurrences, the biggest beast of them all being the Headless Horseman. The legend says that the Headless Horseman was actually a Hessian trooper. A Hessian trooper is a German soldier that was paid by the English to fight on their behalf in the American Revolution. It is said that in an unknown battle, he lost his head due to cannon fire, and now he rages on looking for a replacement. Like most legends, this one tells a tale of warning. It focuses on Mr. Ichabod Crane, a tall, stringy schoolteacher from Connecticut who has a fearful curiosity of the supernatural. He was extremely superstitious, but still loved gossiping with the local women, swapping tales of ghosts and ghouls. He spent his time trying to court the daughter of a local wealthy farmer, and plans to propose to her at their family's harvest celebration. However, another man in town has been trying to do the same thing, and has been pulling pranks on Crane in the hopes of scaring him away. It's at the harvest celebration that Crane is told the story of the Headless Horseman by this other guy who's trying to court the daughter, and that's when he loses his will to propose. He gets a little scared and decides at the end of the night just to go home. So, he's traveling with his horse down through the woods that separates where they had the party and where he is currently staying, and that's when Crane's imagination starts to run wild. He passes several haunted spots before coming across a cloak rider in the middle of the road, and it turns out to be the Headless Horseman. From there, it's a wild race back to the bridge across from the old Dutch cemetery, where the Headless Horseman is supposed to burn up in brimstone if he crosses. As we're nearing the end of the story, Crane makes it over the bridge. However, as he turns around, the Headless Horseman tosses his head at Crane, causing him to fall on the ground. And the next thing we hear from the story is that Crane was never heard from again, and the only thing that was left of him is his hat. I love the style that Irving uses when writing this story. The words are chosen with the utmost care, causing an almost alliteration. It flows wonderfully and has the exact feeling you would want for a shivery fireside tale. Unlike The Most Dangerous Game, the ending of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is kind of up for interpretation. We don't know exactly what happens to Crane, so everybody has their own spin on the story. This makes a great way to retell and retell summer after summer while still keeping those magical vibes to the story. It's the kind of story that you could incorporate into a tradition without it ever getting old, and I love that aspect about it. Well, that's all I've got for you today. Leave a comment down below about your favorite campfire stories, whether they be family favorites or ones that you've just made up. I'd love to hear about them. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. All my other social medias will be down in the description, and otherwise I'll see you guys next week for more shenanigans.